Today, in episode 3 of the Kyle Talks Money podcast, we're going to talk about the benefits of local banks versus big banks. So hit that like and follow me on YouTube and Instagram for personal finance guidance and wisdom from all over the web. When you choose a bank, it's critical to find the products, services, and rates that meet your needs. As you evaluate large national banks versus local banks and credit unions, you may wonder if the size of an institution matters. To some degree, it does, but big banks and small banks can offer essential services like checking and savings accounts. Here's what to consider when you compare banks. Convenience. Choose a bank that's easy to work with on your terms. If you prefer to bank in person, some institutions might have a better presence than others in your area. Cost. Fees are often lower at smaller institutions, but that's not always the case. Identify your banking needs and compare fees for the services you need. Services. Small institutions can have a surprisingly large offering of products and services, but sometimes you need the horsepower of a mega bank. Community. Banking with a local institution helps to support your local economy, and it may make your banking experience easier. But there are always pros and cons. Let's explore the differences between big banks and local banks in more detail. Mega banks have a national reach. That could mean potential convenience. Large national banks with household names dominate large cities, and they even reach into smaller markets. If you value in-person banking, a bank with branches nearby might be a decent option. They can offer one-stop shopping, allowing you to get multiple services from the same institution. For example, you might be able to use one login for your checking and savings accounts, credit cards, and loans. Large banks that have a national reach include Bank of America, Capital One, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, and many other large institutions. Sometimes they're quite frustrating. Big banks often have rigid systems and processes, which makes dealing with them difficult. If you need help from customer service, you may be forced to call a national toll-free number, even though you know and trust the local bankers. You may have to speak with relatively new hires or answer multiple fraud department questions just to open an account. Contrast that experience with a local bank where the same person can handle everything for you in one sitting. Now, the cost can vary. Free checking is increasingly hard to find at megabanks. You can typically qualify for free waivers by having sufficient cash in your accounts or setting up direct deposits, but genuinely free accounts are rare. You can occasionally find fee-free business checking at national banks, while local banks charge modest fees. Now, local banks engage in the community. Community banks and local credit unions are an excellent option for most banking needs. Just because they're smaller doesn't mean they can't meet your needs. Some institutions limit their offerings, others outsource services, and some provide everything you need in-house. They have competitive fees and rates. Local banks are often a good bet for free checking accounts, the accounts you probably need most. Some offer standard free checking for everybody, while others waive fees if you just agree to receive electronic statements. They also compete with attractive rates on savings accounts and loans. Savings rates might still be higher at online banks, but there's nothing to prevent you from holding multiple accounts online and local. Local knowledge. Because they're engaged in local matters, local banks may have transactions that are easier to make. That's particularly true if you need to borrow money. For example, megabanks might be unwilling to fund your local business, investment property, or agricultural loan, but local banks are accustomed to evaluating loans in your area. Personal service. For better or worse, local banks typically provide more personal service than big banks. It's not uncommon to work with the same person over time. Bank staff can even learn about your needs and suggest bank products that may be helpful. You develop relationships and you know what to expect and who to talk to when you have questions. At the same time, you lose anonymity that comes with being a big bank customer. If you live in a particularly small town, you may prefer to keep a low profile. Now, offerings may vary. While local banks and credit unions can offer everything from checking accounts to basic merchant accounts to wealth management, some institutions focus on basic consumer needs. If your favorite local bank doesn't handle business accounts and you start freelancing, you'll need to look elsewhere. Community involvement. Your banking needs to drive your choice of banks, but you may feel a sense of satisfaction when working with a local institution. Local banks and credit unions are part of the local economy, and they often give back. You're likely to see a local institution's logo at charity races and other events, signaling that they contributed money or other resources to help make the event a reality. But don't ignore credit unions. As you explore banks, check for local credit unions, which are not for profit, customer owned financial institutions. Credit unions can often offer the same products and services as local banks and big banks, and they ideally exist to serve their members. Even if you choose a small credit union, you may have access to thousands of other credit union branches and ATMs nationwide through a shared branching network.